Imagine waking up one morning to silent skies. And I don't mean all of that man made stuff like airplanes. What if one day birds disappeared? A recent study by Ken Rosenberg and his team found that North American avifauna have declined by nearly 30% abundance over the last 50 years. Just how much does this translate to, you ask? Roughly 3 billion individual birds. This loss is so large that the study refers to it as a biodiversity crisis. So, how did Dr. Rosenberg and his team do it? Their evaluations included 529 species of birds found in the United States and Canada and were drawn from multiple data sets of which had as much as 50 years of data collected. To support these results, his team also used data collected from 143 NexRad sites, or weather radars that account for the changes in nocturnal migratory passage of avian biomass. So, we know how the study was conducted and just how big the numbers are, but we need to understand the source of population decline before we can combat it. Since the beginning of human history, mortality sources have increased, and along with it, species have become increasingly threatened. What we will talk about next are some common threats to current North American bird populations. While on my search for more answers on this current crisis, I came across a 2015 study that analyzed all causes for direct mortality of birds. Some of the more common sources included domestic cats, building and automobile collisions, the use of pesticides, and power line collisions. Let's take a look at these in more detail. Predation by domestic cats has been an issue for some time now, and while the effects have been largely understood on small islands, only recently have the effects on mainland areas been analyzed. In 2015, the first data-driven national estimate for cat predation in the United States was generated. And you might say these results are alarming, as it was estimated that 1.4 to 4 billion birds are killed annually by cats. These results indicate that predation by domestic cats is responsible for the highest rate of anthropogenic mortality. The most important way we can manage the problem is by preventing or limiting outdoor access for domestic cats. That being said, it remains that tens of millions of domestic cats remain outdoors, and largely because of owners' behaviors. Building and automobile collisions are next on our list, and they are said to be the second largest cause of mortality. They were responsible for the death of hundreds of millions of birds. While roads have many ecological impacts, the largest impact is the mortality rate of birds due to collisions. Analyses have shown that the indirect effects of roads have a clear impact on mortality rates of birds. However, these rates may also be affected by factors such as habitat loss and noise. Buildings, however, are responsible for far more. Recent reviews have generated national estimates of bird building collision mortality and found that while most urban adapted species are not vulnerable, migratory species are. While skyscrapers and other large buildings are responsible for killing the most birds per building, residencies cumulatively kill the most birds. What kind of total does this leave us with? Roughly 365 to 988 million birds lost annually to buildings. Add the amount that cars are responsible for, and both could very well be responsible for over 1 billion deaths. We hear a lot about pesticides being used primarily on crops, but turns out there's a lot more to it. 4 types of pesticides have been known to directly cause bird mortality, and these include herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, and rodenticides. And at least 113 of these are known to directly cause bird mortality. In Canada alone, it is estimated that between 1 and 4.4 million birds are killed annually, with rates in the U.S. estimated to be much higher. The last major cause of bird mortality that we should cover are power lines, in which birds die both by collisions and electrocution. Annually, power lines are responsible for the death of anywhere between 8 to 57 million birds annually. While we've gone over a number of important reasons for bird mortality, it is important to understand that only 4 of many were covered in detail. Other causes of bird mortality, according to this study, include feral cats, nets from fisheries, wind turbines, communication towers, low-rise buildings, marine oil, trawls from fisheries, and more. Hold on, wait a minute. But why does all of this matter? Why did I go over all of this with you in the first place? I promise you, there are a lot of reasons, and many have effects on our society as a whole. Some great services birds provide within our ecosystems include pollination, seed dispersal, pest control, as well as fish eating and scavenging, to name a few. Nectarivores, birds that pollinate, and frugivores, which disperse seeds, are important for maintaining plant populations and community dynamics. Without these important roles that birds play, there could be serious consequences, including the extinction of plant species dependent on specific bird species. Insectivorous birds play an important role in keeping insect populations to a minimum on many of the plants we love, like apple trees and coffee shrubs, as well as important species like oak trees, and that's just a few of many. It is also important to keep in mind that birds play a huge part in pest control, making them economically beneficial to us. To add to this, many insect-eating birds are highly specialized, and the extinction of one taxa could mean that another could never replace its role in an ecosystem. Scavengers' most important roles are in the recycling of nutrients, leading other scavengers to carcasses, and limiting the spread of disease to human communities due to slowly decomposing carcasses. And it isn't completely clear what effects fish-eating birds might have on ecosystems. However, it may be important to study more of, as they could have a top-down or bottom-up effect. Long story short, birds play a huge role for plants, insects, marine life, and let's not forget, us. I think it's safe to say, without birds, a lot could go wrong for our planet. After all that talk about the decline of North American birds and the consequences that may come with it, I certainly don't plan on leaving you hopeless. Let's briefly discuss the efforts that can slow this decline and the plans that are already in action. The same study I found discussing mortality causes also discussed ways we can help. While power lines and cars are a hard subject to tackle right now, there are clear efforts that can be made for buildings and domestic cats. Cats are a major problem, and as I said previously, these incidences are occurring largely due to owners' behaviors. So what can owners do, and what should you do if you have a cat? That's right, keep them inside and try to monitor their time if you still let them out. While we can't tear down every establishment we've built up, there are some ways to lessen the amount of bird-building collisions. Efforts include turning off the lights during migrations, bird-friendly design elements including reducing reflective surfaces and minimizing deep alcoves, as well as developing deterrence techniques. On top of all of this, there are efforts already being made. Among a number of organizations taking part, I encourage you to check out the American Bird Conservancy and the American Ornithological Society. The American Bird Conservancy works on a range of issues for birds, including preventing extinction of endangered birds, preventing birds of conservation concern from becoming endangered, mitigating threats to all birds, and building conservation capacity. In order to prevent the extinction of bird species, the American Bird Conservancy monitors the Endangered Species Act, sustains protected reserves, has restored habitats in places such as Hawaii, and protects seabird colonies from invasive species. To prevent birds of conservation concern from becoming endangered, they work on improving management of millions of acres of land in the U.S. They also protect, manage, and conserve these birds. Threats to all birds are also reduced by working with policymakers and partner groups to develop solutions to the big causes of bird mortality. Lastly, they tackle issues faced by birds all across the Western Hemisphere by offering financial and technical support, as well as sharing knowledge. All of this information can be found on their website, as well as much more on what they are doing for bird conservancy. As such, the American Ornithological Society works to take on a similar role in protecting birds. So, we've covered a lot in a small amount of time. Let's review. First, we discussed the recent discovery of the large decline in North American avifauna. This led us to examining why this is happening a little bit closer. Then we reviewed the consequences of this decline and the strides being made towards this problem. Change certainly can't happen overnight, but the more we are informed, the more we understand, and the more we can do, whether that includes small actions or big steps. In the end, it all counts. I encourage you to look into this further if you'd like, and better yet, inform others or take action. And I thank you for taking the time to watch this video and educate yourself on a serious matter.